Hey everybody, welcome to SwingBadder. You watched Albert Pujols and you watched Alex Rodriguez. Now we get to decide who was worse. Alex Rodriguez, Arod, or Albert Pujols for the Angels. Dad's going to be the judge yet again. And Todd, which player are you going to be arguing as the worst contract for SwingBadder?
Well, first of all, both were signed at their peak market value. They both were Pop-Tarts that had freshly popped out of the toaster, frosting at the perfect temperature, and the inside not quite at the temperature of molten lava burning your mouth out, but just fruity enough to add a little flavor to your day. However, neither of them were replicating in the contracts what they did to get there in the first place. I'm picking Pujols. Pujols
Fantastic.
is the most swing battery of the swing battery contracts out of these two. His performance with the Angels was nowhere even close to what he got signed to do. The guy had injuries upon injuries that someone like 10 years older than Albert Pujols should have had. The age-related declines. He couldn't run to first base. He could barely run around the bases when he hit home runs, and he hit a lot of them. It's his 600th home run with the Angels, which was fantastic, but that wasn't even exciting when he did it. By the time he did it, everybody was just so bored, they forgot he was actually playing. I think on the East Coast, we all forgot that Albert Pujols was still playing baseball, and it really impacted the Angels' payroll flexibility. And so you have this zero output, making the playoffs once and failing miserably, and getting eliminated. It was horrible the whole time. I mean, he just never lived up to what it was he was supposed to do with this contract. And financially, performance-related issues, it just is. It's a burden. It's an albatross. It's a hot mess of a contract that the Angels could not get rid of fast enough.
Todd, I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't it true that Albert Pujols did have several years with the Angels where he knocked in over 100 runs?
Yes. You could have also gotten that for less than $240 million. And they did. Several teams got 100 RBIs from players all over baseball for less than $240 million.
He also was somewhat, until the last couple of years, he was also pretty dependable, playing in, almost all the games, 140, 150, 157 games in a lot of those years. So he until the end, when he kind of broke down in the last 2 years health-wise, but up until then, it seems like he was either a DH or first base almost every night.
Well, that's fantastic. And listen, props to the guy for showing up, but a doorstop also holds the door open. It doesn't mean it's a useful piece of furniture in the house.
Okay. I'm considering all of it. Brennan, what do you have to say?
So I get to argue for Alex Rodriguez. Now, obviously, I think there's a lot better SwingBadder contracts I would like to put against Albert Pujols that could easily defeat him. This is going to be a challenge. Alex Rodriguez not only opted out of his illustrious stop the phones burner contract of Texas Rangers for $252. He opted out in 2007 after winning the MVP and taking and leading the Yankees to the playoffs, only to lose in the first round. He opted out and said, I want to renegotiate, which he did. He got a nice 10-year, $275 million contract with the Yankees to play the rest of his career. Now, the Yankees are known for mainly one thing, winning championships. That's what they're about. That's what they want. They don't want playoffs. They don't want rings. They don't want pennants. They want the World Series. So when they signed they signed Arod to get this deal. The whole point of this deal was to get across the finish line. Now, he hasn't exactly performed in the playoffs, so one could argue why they even signed this deal. But it was to keep him happy because he opted out, and they didn't want him to go across the pond to the Boston Red Sox, and they wanted to keep him. His numbers are pretty fantastical to start. He was not bad. His first couple years were pretty darn solid. He had a lot of all-star appearances. He had some highlights throughout the time, but nothing ever matched what he had in 2007 when he had 54 home runs and 156 RBIs. His most was in 2010 for 125 RBIs, but also in 2010, that was the last year he really played a lot of games until post-suspension. Now, what makes this a SwingBadder contract for Alex a little bit is the fact he did get suspended for performance-enhancing involvement. We'll call it the involvement because they didn't really accuse him of anything other than being involved with an organization that did human growth hormones. And he was also injured going into that, so he didn't play and was suspended a whole year, which saved the Yankees an enormous amount of money and cost Arod a lot of money himself. He proceeded to come back the next year and got one vote for MVP by somebody known as, his friend as a sports writer because he didn't deserve it. And then he was bid adieu, and they paid him money to go away for his last 2 years, something that I believe Albert never got paid to go away. Albert played the entire contract to its end. Arod spent the last 2 years of his contract advising the Yankees on what not to do in the postseason. Don't overthink it, and don't watch Strike 3.
Brendan, your argument is we're looking at Arod's reduced performance after signing the 2007 contract. Is that what we're doing?
He signed after 2007. So 2008 and beyond is when his new deal, his 10-year, $275 million deal took place, which he was suspended for one of those seasons, and then he was told to go away for the last two, and he did not play at all. He was simply an advisor.
What do you say about this argument? That a lot of the reason Arod is in such disdain and they looked bad at the contract is because he was on television, because the Yankees were often in the playoffs or competing, and his disappointments were more well-known than Pujols, who never got in the playoffs, even though Pujols may have even been more disappointing. What would you argue about that?
This is the East Coast baseball bias. The Yankees are seen on TV quite more often than anybody on the West Coast, which is a true story, but Albert wasn't seen on the Cardinals. He didn't perform in the top moments. He did leave the Yankees high and dry through those years. And a collective, for what you're signing, you're hoping that he would bring in another 3 or 4 championships. And in that time, the Yankees won 1. And that doesn't do it if you're a Yankee fan. Now, I know Albert didn't win any for the Angels. And he also performed a little worse for where. But Arod got involved in a lot of extracurriculars, and he invited a lot of drama, and he did a lot of things that he shouldn't have been doing. And Albert just kind of hung out and was part of the team.
Albert was like the lecture professor at college that you sat in the back, and yeah, you showed up for the whole lecture, but was it really worth it? Was it really worth it, or was it just a nap time? That's really like, yeah, I shouldn't have paid tuition for this class. Could have just read the book.
I find this argument interesting from this point of view. We have 2 players who signed huge contracts somewhere around 31 or 32 years old. Both of them were 10-year contracts. And both of them underperformed and disappointed. Todd, in your argument, I'm making an argument for you, but what you didn't mention is that Albert Pujols' money locked the Angels up so they couldn't bring any more players in.
I talked about flexibility a little bit. I mean, listen, when Arod in the postseason, it was a surprise party. You know, you just didn't know which Arod was going to show up. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. Pujols, you were just surprised if he made it to second base before he turned, and had a birthday party. I mean, Pujols was a yawner. This is an absolute waste of money. The Angels got so bored with this guy, they forgot he was on the team. The Yankees got a World Series ring out of it. That's worth it. They sold some shirts.
They did.
J-Lo showed up at games.
Arod did make a lot of people a lot of money covering the Yankees. They did like to cover the Jeter Arod thing, but he just didn't he didn't deliver at the times that they needed, and then he brought on all the extra drama. That's my only argument for Arod. As far as stats are concerned, he did make several All-Stars. He still did perform after 2007, but he was caught up in a sting, if you will, and I don't think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame because of that, as opposed to Mr. Albert.
This is a very hard decision for me because emotionally, there's a player that I really like and a player that I really don't like. So my emotions want to dislike Alex's contract more than Albert's. I did take great joy in watching Arod bomb out in the playoffs and get benched. That gave me great joy and made me realize I'm paying all this money to a guy who can't even start in the playoffs for you. However, on the Pujols side, they were so bad they didn't even make the playoffs. I mean, that's what's sad. They didn't even make the playoffs. And the guy, he did, I think, a more severe crash and burn because his lowest average of Cardinals 299, and he never came close to that again. Arod, well, I guess I have to reconsider this. Arod had an MVP year with the Yankees, but it was before the contract, correct?
That is correct.
So after the contract is when he went down. They're both classic swing batter contracts.
Dad, it sounds to me like if you're shopping for disappointment, it sounds to me like the Pujols contract just made you sad and the Arod contract made you happy. So one was worse. One did not give you what you wanted out of it.
This is an odd thing for my father because as a Diamondback fan, Albert Pujols murdered the Diamondbacks with all the years of the Cardinals. So you think he would have taken great joy in watching Albert burn out for the Angels. But for some reason, the Angels are a pity team. We don't like the Yankees, but the Angels were like, why can't they do it?
It's just
why
sad.
can't those guys in LA make it happen? How come they can't be like the Dodgers?
I have to say, trying to take all my emotions out of it, just watching which player crashed and burned the most, I'm going to say it's Arod. Arod because he fell apart physically, and didn't play at the end, got suspended. I think his contract was more disastrous than Albert.
I think this whole game is rigged.
This is a shocking development.
Once again, I'm going to appeal to Mom on this one. She'll probably side with Brendan just because he's her favorite too. There's too much emotion involved in this stuff.
And for those that don't know, Dad obviously follows all this baseball stuff. He follows all the signings. He has emotions on every signing and every deal. So Dad, as the judge, is picking Arod, which is hilarious to me because I for sure thought Albert had the clear-cut winner on this one. Todd, I guess your argument just wasn't as fantastic as I thought you could have. But for those that want to leave a comment and tell us which contract they thought was worse, if you're an Angels fan, I'm sure you hated Albert. And if you're an Yankees fan, I bet you hated Arod. So I'm kind of interested to see how you would vote in this. Please feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and like as we continue to compare and contrast all of the SwingBadder contracts that we cover here on this, your favorite baseball contract channel, SwingBadder. Thanks, everybody. You have a great night.
Pujols is just coming home.